One thing we didn't mention when we were with you on air last time, Keith, which I want you to talk about because I remember when we finished I was going, oh, that's amazing, is the Zappy thing. You have this amazing orthotic.
My Zappy thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is absolutely brilliant because it gives you mobility, doesn't it? Just tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, well, in case you aren't aware, I'm a disabled person myself. So I use a wheelchair for longer distances and 2 sticks for shorter distances. And one of the things I have is, as I say, what I call my Zappy thing. It's actually a functional electronic stimulator. So it's a couple of electrodes that are attached to the calf and a remote control switch underneath my heel. So when I lift my foot up, it electrocutes my calf and pulls my foot into the correct place so I can take a step, which is great. And it's made a big difference to how well I walk. My left leg, unfortunately, there was no response. So that has what's called a fixed ankle foot orthotic, which doesn't allow your ankle to flex at all. It holds it at 90 degrees all the time. So yeah, the Zappy thing is quite a revelation. Makes a big difference.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? And you can't see it either necessarily. I know last time you had it sort of under your trousers, you couldn't even tell that it was there.
No.
But the fact it gives you mobility where there wasn't mobility before is. I mean, does it hurt when the electric shock happens?
No, because there's no sensation, so I don't feel it anyway. But what you'll like this. In my last job, when I was working with Leonard Cheshire, we had a young lady who has a terrific sense of humour, and she's a power wheelchair user. And I was showing her my Zappy thing, and I took the remote control off and showed her how it worked. And so I gave it to her, and so she was actually remotely controlling my foot without me having any
dangerous.
control. Well, yeah, because she said to me, "How far away does it work?" And I said, "I don't know." So she disappeared off with it. And she was out of sight, and my foot was just randomly firing up while she was pressing it. She came back killing herself laughing. It was very funny. So
it's great because you could get into all sorts of trouble and just blame it all on a malfunctioning remote, couldn't you?
Well, the other thing that's interesting, and I probably do need to chase this up, but there's a company in the UK who, I don't know whether it's actually come off, but I put them in touch with the physio department because they have a functional electronic simulating cycle. And they put these pads on all of the muscle groups, and the computer works out where on a cycle your muscles should be firing. And so it fires them off. So you can actually cycle even if you're paralysed from the neck downwards. And I've spoken to somebody who's paraplegic, and he said the first time he used it, he knew what was going to happen. And they wired him up, and he started cycling and thinking, wow, this is amazing. First time he'd cycled, he said, since he jumped out of a tree as a 14-year-old and broke his neck.
Oh, gosh.
And he said the thing he hadn't prepared himself for was he suddenly started to sweat and become out of breath because, of course, he's getting a full cardiac workout through this cycle machine. So the plan was to lend one to the physiotherapy department over here to assess it. So I do need to chase up my physiotherapist and find out whether that happened. I don't know. Maybe we're going out live to the physiotherapy department. They can email you and let you know whether they got one or not. So.
Unbelievable what you can do, isn't it?
Would that be like allowing people to have that facility to exercise like that? Would that be really beneficial? Because obviously if you're not able to exercise yourself, but to be able to put your body through that kind of stress would improve your health.
Absolutely, yeah. Because that's one of the difficulties, and it's one of the difficulties I face, is that because I can't exercise as I used to, I can't walk the dog. I used to walk my dogs miles, and I can't do that now. So I am much more unfit than I used to be. So something like that would allow me to actually work up a proper cardiac workout. And so, yes, they are very, and I mean, I've still got upper body strength, so I could still do stuff. It's just sort of like fitting it in and having the time and the energy to do it. Whereas somebody who's
not quite a whole body though, is it? And that's a different thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I could, for example, go on a rowing machine, for example, and get a workout that way. Yeah. Whereas somebody who's paralysed from higher up the body can't even do that. So being able to use one of these machines, and they're like everything, they're coming down in price. I think they're currently about £17,000, but I'm sure that like 2 years ago they were probably £100,000. You know, so they're not too far away off being something that people could achieve or raise funds for reasonably easily.
But if you're improving people's health, then they would need less resources with other support. So then actually it would end up being a lot cheaper because often it's when you're unfit and then something happens or you get other diseases that that's actually costed a fortune.
Yeah.
So being fitter for longer is
and you're more prone.
win-win.
You're more prone to things like chest infections and things like
Yeah.
that if you're sedentary.
Yeah.
So anything that keeps you physically fit is a good thing. So so I will try and chase that up and find out whether they got one or not.
Absolutely
Can I just ask, can
fascinating.
I have that? Can I have one? Because I hate exercise. And if I could just press the button and then somebody could just be like, right, let's just... that would be awesome.
Somewhat defeating the object there.
I know.
But anyway, I just wanted to ask you about that because I think it is fascinating, and it clearly is, because everyone in the studio is just sort of jaw drop. It's amazing what you can do. But obviously you are here to talk about PSS, the Shared Lives scheme. So for those who didn't hear you last time, just remind people what PSS actually is.
Well, as you said, PSS is 99 years old in the UK. They very forward-looking organisation over the past century. Developed quite a few well-known initiatives. Things like legal aid came out of PSS initiatives. Age concern. There's quite a number of things that they developed. We're new to the Isle of Man. Over the last few months since I was last here, we became registered as a company, we've become registered as a charity, and we're now going through the final stage, which is regulation and inspections team. So once we've got through that stage, we'll then be able to start developing the service itself. So we're currently at the point of recruiting. We're not actually doing just yet, but we're getting closer. I was talking about it the other week to somebody, and I was explaining what it is we're trying to do, and they came up with a far better description than I've come up with so far, which is basically we're going to be looking at homestay for people with learning disabilities. So if you think back to TT, people opening their homes and having guests stay with them, that's actually what we're going to be doing with for people who've got a learning disability. Gives them a wider choice than traditional respite care. They'll go and stay with a family on a short break. We will have police checked them, we will have done training, we'll offer support, and we'll offer also an ongoing overview to make sure that standards are maintained and things like that. So it's quite an interesting initiative, and hopefully it'll be not hopefully, it will be a success. It's just the hard work at the moment is getting it all going and off the ground.
And currently you are doing all of that hard work, pretty much flying solo, aren't you, Keith?
Yes, currently on my own. It's a one-man band at the moment. When I was last here, Dawn was with us, who was our development worker, and Dawn was really great, settled into the organisation very, very well. Unfortunately, she has met up with a problem that I think quite a lot of people, in particular working ladies, have. She's got 3 young children, and balancing the childcare with the work was getting harder anyway. And then come the holidays, she was actually paying more in childcare than she was earning. So something had to give, and quite rightly, she had to put her family first. So unfortunately, we've lost Dawn. We're now looking for a new Dawn. And
looking for a new Dawn. Isn't that a Star Wars movie?
It sounds like it should be, doesn't it? Yeah.
So you are looking for a development work, you're recruiting, and actually the deadline's quite soon, isn't it?
Yes. If anybody's interested and want to get in touch for a little bit of a word about it, please feel free to get in touch with me quickly, because the closing date is actually this Friday, with interviews the following Friday. But yes, anybody who's interested, what the new Dawn will be doing is going out, meeting people, and trying to basically put together people who use service who will enjoy going into a certain family. So it's about matching the right people up. And in fact, our advert mentions chips, cheese and gravy. It's that kind of thing. It's putting the right people together so that things will work. And that's basically what we're going to be looking for in someone.
So speaking of matching the right people, for someone who might like the idea of opening their home and being a carer as such, what sort of skill set will they need? Because do they need experience in the field? No.
In fact, quite the opposite. I mean, one of the things I've said throughout my entire career is that given the choice between somebody who's got skills and a poor attitude, or somebody who's got no skills and a great attitude, I'm going to take the person with the great attitude, because you can teach skills, you can't teach attitude. And so really, it's probably most of the people we recruit, I think, are probably going to be people who are having a bit of a career change, or it might be somebody who's taken early retirement, somebody who fancies doing something different, or it might be a younger person who, I mean, for example, Dawn has said that she may look at becoming a carer in the future herself. So it's finding people who actually want to help to support people with a disability, primarily people with learning disabilities. Basically, you need a good attitude and you need a spare room. And beyond that, we can support and help you to get to where you need to be.